What if humanity's story isn't the first chapter in Earth's long history? Imagine entire civilizations rising and falling, leaving only whispers in stone, myths in ancient texts, and mysteries science still struggles to explain. Could the ruins we see be just fragments of something far older, something erased by time itself? Tonight, let's journey into the possibility that Earth once held secrets of civilizations before us. The Earth has existed for around 4.5 billion years, an unimaginably vast span of time that stretches so far beyond the scope of human experience that it is difficult even to truly comprehend. Humanity, by comparison, has only existed for the briefest moment in that expanse. Anatomically modern humans have walked the Earth for perhaps 300,000 years, civilizations for only around 6,000, and industrial society for barely 200. In terms of geological time, that is less than a blink, less than a single second in a cosmic day. When we set our existence against the background of Earth's long, turbulent, and ever-changing history, a natural question arises. Could there have been room for others before us? Could entire intelligent civilizations have risen, flourished, and then disappeared so thoroughly that the only traces left behind are whispers in stone, subtle anomalies, or echoes embedded in myth? To explore such a possibility, one has to step back and look at the immensity of time itself. Earth's surface has been reshaped countless times. Continents have drifted, collided, and split apart. Oceans have risen and fallen, swallowing coastlines and revealing new land. Entire mountain ranges have formed and then eroded away into dust. Ice ages have locked the planet in frigid silence before giving way to warm, lush interludes where life flourished in new directions. Each of these changes has the power not only to wipe away traces of a species, but also to create the illusion that they never existed at all. If we consider how much of our own fragile, modern civilization could survive the onslaught of even a few thousand years, let alone millions, it becomes clearer that absence of evidence is not always evidence of absence. Imagine, for a moment, that another intelligent species walked this planet tens of millions of years ago. Perhaps they emerged in a warm interval after one of Earth's many mass extinctions. When new ecological niches were wide open, they might have developed societies, technologies, even a level of mastery over their environment that rivals or surpasses our own. But then perhaps the Earth shifted violently. A supervolcano erupted, blanketing their cities in ash and plunging the globe into cold darkness. Or a massive asteroid, like the one that ended the reign of the dinosaurs, struck and ended their civilization in a single catastrophic moment. Over time, everything they built would have been buried, eroded, recycled by tectonic processes, or swallowed by the ocean. Millions of years later, the rocks in which their bones or tools once rested might themselves have been transformed into something unrecognizable. The fossil record is staggeringly incomplete. We only know about a tiny fraction of the life that has ever existed. For every fossil we have discovered, countless others never formed or were destroyed. Even entire species that thrived for millions of years can vanish without leaving a trace for us to find. Our knowledge of ancient life is like a handful of scattered puzzle pieces from a vast and intricate picture. We reconstruct as best we can, but the gaps remain enormous. Within those gaps lies the possibility that intelligent beings could have existed and disappeared without our knowledge. It is a thought that unsettles the confidence with which we place ourselves at the pinnacle of Earth's story. Science fiction and speculative philosophy have often played with this idea, but it is not purely a matter of imagination. There are genuine anomalies scattered through history and prehistory that make people wonder. Ancient maps that depict coastlines with surprising accuracy, such as the Peary Race map. Megalithic structures that seem to have been constructed with techniques far beyond what their builders are assumed to have known. Out-of-place artifacts occasionally uncovered that defy easy categorization. While many of these can be explained through natural processes, misinterpretations, or the skill and ingenuity of ancient peoples, they fuel curiosity about whether fragments of something older and more sophisticated might have filtered through to later cultures, passed down as myth or distorted into legend. Human myths themselves are saturated with stories of golden ages, lost continents, and civilizations destroyed in cataclysms. The story of Atlantis, told by Plato but likely drawn from older traditions, speaks of a mighty civilization swallowed by the sea. Similar tales exist around the world. Great floods that swept across the land, empires brought low by fire and water, wise beings from earlier ages who handed down knowledge before vanishing. To dismiss these entirely as invention is to ignore the persistence of such motifs across widely separated cultures. While myths are not literal records, they often encode memories of real events, sometimes natural disasters, sometimes cultural encounters, and perhaps in some cases, distant recollections of civilizations so old they slip into the fog of prehistory. If we were to search for evidence of such civilizations, where would we look? Most human-built structures, even those made of stone, are fragile when measured against geological forces. Within just a few thousand years, cities left untended crumble, forests reclaim them, rivers wash them away, and deserts bury them in shifting dunes. Within 1,000,000 years, few if any recognizable remains would survive. The surface of the Earth is constantly recycled through erosion, plate tectonics, and volcanic activity. Oceans, which cover most of the planet, are the ultimate erasers. Anything built along ancient coasts could now lie submerged hundreds of meters below sea level, lost to silt and coral. To find remnants of civilizations millions of years old, one would have to search deep underground in caves sealed away from time, or in layers of rock where a rare fossilized artifact might survive. There is also the question of what such civilizations might have looked like. We often imagine beings like ourselves, humanoid in shape and technological in focus. But intelligence can take many forms. Octopuses are problem solvers capable of tool use and complex behaviors, yet they leave almost nothing behind that could be preserved after death. A civilization of beings more like them might never leave ruins we could recognize. They might build with organic materials that degrade quickly. They might have left their traces in genetic modifications to plants or subtle chemical signatures in the soil. Perhaps the only echoes left would be unusual patterns in rock layers, unexplained isotopes, or minerals that should not be there. In fact, scientists have proposed that if an industrial society had existed tens of millions of years ago, one of the only ways we might detect it now would be through changes in the geological record. Anomalous concentrations of metals, plastics, or artificial chemicals, much like what our own civilization is leaving behind. This line of thought leads to a humbling realization. If Earth has hosted intelligent civilizations before, they may not be remembered in stone monuments or artifacts, but only in subtle shifts hidden deep in the Earth itself. And if that is true, then what we are doing now, our mining, our plastics, our nuclear reactors, our industrial waste, could be the only trace left of us tens of millions of years from now. Our skyscrapers may crumble, our satellites may fall, our books and digital records may vanish, but the unusual layer of chemicals we are depositing in the soil and atmosphere could remain, puzzling some future intelligence into wondering who we were. The possibility of earlier civilizations also reshapes how we think about our place in time. We often see ourselves as the culmination of a long evolutionary process, the singular intelligent species in Earth's story. But what if we are only one in a series, perhaps not the first, perhaps not the last? If civilizations have risen and fallen before, then intelligence is not a rare accident but a recurring phenomenon, emerging under the right conditions, and then fading under the pressure of time and catastrophe. It might mean that intelligence is more common in the universe than we think. Or it might mean that intelligence is always fragile, always impermanent, doomed to vanish without lasting impact on the grand geological scale. The silence of the earth does not settle the question. The lack of evidence does not prove that we are alone in history. Instead, it invites us to look more carefully, to expand our imagination and to respect the vastness of time. It challenges us to think not just about how civilizations are born, but also about how they are forgotten. It reminds us that the traces of our own existence are not guaranteed to endure, and that what we build may one day be as invisible as the footprints of any predecessors who walked this world before us. And yet, there is a strange comfort in this speculation. To imagine that others may have existed before us is to imagine that we are part of a larger tapestry, one woven over aeons. It means our struggles, our achievements, our fears of collapse or extinction are not unique but shared in spirit with beings we will never know. Whether they existed or not, the possibility alone deepens the mystery of life on Earth and urges us to care for the fragile moment we have been given. For in the blink of an eye that we occupy, we are writing our chapter into the geological book of time, a chapter whose echoes may one day leave future minds wondering if they, too, are truly the first. For as long as human beings have told stories, we have spun tales of worlds that once were, worlds that shone with brilliance before vanishing into the mists of time, across cultures, across continents, from the shores of Greece to the mountains of South America, from India's ancient texts to Polynesia's chants, echoes of lost civilizations recur again and again. They come to us in fragments, tales of islands swallowed by the sea, kingdoms struck down by gods, golden ages of peace and knowledge cut short by catastrophe. The question that lingers is whether these myths are simply products of imagination, allegories meant to teach lessons, or whether they preserve distant memories of civilizations that truly existed, whose traces lie buried beneath oceans, mountains, or deserts, waiting for discovery. The story of Atlantis is perhaps the most famous of these legends, first described by the philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias. According to him, Atlantis was a mighty naval power that existed 9,000 years before his time, a vast island empire beyond the Pillars of Hercules. It was a place of concentric rings of land and water, ruled by kings descended from Poseidon himself. The Atlanteans were advanced, wealthy, and ambitious, but pride led them into war with Athens, and the gods, displeased, sent earthquakes and floods that destroyed their land in a single day and night. For centuries, this tale has fascinated thinkers, explorers, and dreamers. Some have dismissed it as Plato's allegory about hubris and the decline of states, but others have asked whether his story was drawn from older traditions, memories of real cataclysms handed down orally through the ages. The motif of a drowned land is not unique to Greek philosophy. Myths from India speak of Dwarka, a golden city ruled by Krishna that was swallowed by the sea. Off the coast of modern-day Gujarat, ruins of ancient structures lie beneath the waves, stirring speculation about whether myth and archaeology are intertwined. In the Pacific, Polynesian lore speaks of Hawaii, the ancestral homeland from which people once voyaged before it was lost to the ocean. In Southeast Asia, there are legends of sunken lands stretching across the vanished continent of Sundaland. In the Indian Ocean, Tamil traditions remember Kumari Kandam, a vast kingdom said to have been swallowed by rising waters. These stories come from places far apart, yet they share striking similarities. The memory of a land lost to the sea, a flourishing culture, and a sudden catastrophe. One of the most intriguing of these myths is that of Lemuria, a hypothesized lost continent in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. In the 19th century, Scientists, noticing similarities in fauna between India and Madagascar, speculated about a sunken land bridge that once connected them. The name Lemuria came from the lemur, a primate native to Madagascar. Though geology eventually dismissed the idea of such a landmass, the concept was adopted into esoteric traditions and spiritual teachings. Lemuria became a mystical place of ancient wisdom, a civilization that achieved harmony and spiritual advancement before vanishing beneath the waves. To this day, the name carries associations of hidden truths, forgotten ages, and knowledge waiting to be rediscovered. Why do such myths endure, and why do they appear so universally? One possibility is that they are cultural memories of real geological events. During the last ice age, sea levels were far lower than today. Vast coastal plains existed where oceans now stretch, and entire communities may have thrived in those areas. As the glaciers melted around 12,000 years ago, seas rose dramatically, drowning those lands. Imagine the trauma of watching your homeland vanish, your temples consumed by water, your ancestors forced to flee to higher ground. Such memories would naturally be preserved in myth, carried forward through generations as warnings and laments. Flood myths, in fact, appear in nearly every culture. The story of Noah's Ark in the Bible, the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, the Hindu account of Manu, and countless indigenous traditions all describe deluges that swept across the earth, sparing only a few survivors. Could these stories be independent inventions, or are they cultural echoes of a shared experience, the great floods that followed the Ice Age? Beyond floods and lost continents, myths also speak of golden ages. Nearly every culture has some memory of a time when humans lived in harmony with gods, when knowledge was pure and the world uncorrupted. In Greek tradition, Hesiod wrote of the Golden Age when humans lived without toil, sorrow, or war, sustained by the earth itself. In Hindu cosmology, the Satya Yuga represents the first of 4 ages, an age of truth and perfection, later followed by ages of decline. Mesoamerican traditions describe earlier suns or worlds, destroyed and remade before the present one. Norse myths speak of an age of peace before the coming of Ragnarok. These myths do not only speak of destruction but also of cycles, civilizations rising, falling, and rising again. The idea of a lost golden age suggests that humanity might not be on a linear path of progress from primitive to advanced, but perhaps on a repeating cycle of ascent and collapse. If we take these myths seriously, even as metaphors, they raise profound questions. Are they simply human projections of longing, imagining a perfect past to contrast with present hardships? Or are they distorted recollections of real civilizations whose achievements were so great that later peoples could only explain them as divine? The Great Pyramid of Giza, with its precision alignment and immense scale, has sparked speculation that knowledge has been lost to us. Sites like Pumapunku in Bolivia, where massive stones fit together with astonishing precision, have inspired wonder about technologies forgotten. While archaeology can provide explanations grounded in skill, ingenuity, and patient labor, the persistence of legends of lost knowledge suggests that ancient people themselves may have believed they were heirs to a greater past. The Library of Alexandria stands as a poignant symbol of this theme. Though not a myth, it has taken on legendary status, said to have contained countless scrolls of knowledge from across the world. Its destruction is remembered as a catastrophic loss to human civilization. What was lost there? Histories, sciences, philosophies, perhaps even records of older worlds. The tragedy of knowledge destroyed resonates with myths of golden ages lost, for it suggests that humanity does not always move forward. Sometimes it forgets. Buried within myths may also be encoded astronomical and geological information, Some scholars suggest that myths of floods, fires, and cataclysms may reflect real cosmic events: comets, meteor strikes, volcanic eruptions. The eruption of Thera around 1600 BCE, which devastated the Minoan civilization, may have influenced Greek tales of Atlantis. Indigenous myths from North America speak of a fiery star falling from the sky, eerily reminiscent of the meteor that struck near the end of the Ice Age and may have contributed to the extinction of megafauna. Ancient peoples often encoded observations into story, passing them down in memorable form. Over millennia, those stories could become legend, their original context blurred but their essence preserved. What is fascinating is how myths of lost civilizations continue to inspire not only speculation but also exploration. Divers search the ocean floor for traces of sunken cities. Archaeologists probe beneath deserts and jungles for ruins that might match ancient descriptions. Satellite imagery reveals hidden patterns of forgotten structures, aligning with ancient roads and waterways. The more we learn, the more we realize how much we do not know. Whole cultures have risen and fallen, leaving behind only fragments. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a site dating back over 11,000 years, stunned archaeologists by revealing monumental architecture far older than expected, suggesting complex societies existed before agriculture was thought to have fully developed. If such sites can be discovered after lying hidden for millennia, what else might still rest beneath sand, sea, or stone? And yet myths are not only about the past, they also shape how we see ourselves. To imagine that we are heirs to lost golden ages or survivors of ancient catastrophes changes our sense of identity. It reminds us of our fragility, our impermanence, and the possibility that what we take as inevitable progress could in fact be temporary. Civilizations are not guaranteed permanence. They can vanish, leaving behind only whispers for future generations. By listening to myths, we may not recover literal histories of Atlantis or Lemuria, but we can learn something about human memory, about how cultures preserve warnings and hopes in symbolic form. Ultimately, the power of these myths lies in their ambiguity. If they were purely fictional, they would not resonate across so many cultures and ages. If they were purely factual, we would expect clearer evidence. They exist in the space between, as tantalizing reminders of the possibility that we are not the first, that history may be deeper and stranger than we know. To entertain the question, are they myths or distant memories of real civilizations? Is not to abandon reason but to recognize the limits of our knowledge and the immensity of time. In the end, perhaps the answer is both. Myths are myths, woven with imagination, symbolism, and cultural expression, but they may also carry distant echoes of reality. Floods that drowned lands, cities that fell, knowledge that was lost, and perhaps civilizations whose ruins lie beneath our feet, unseen and unrecognized. Whether or not Atlantis or Lemuria truly existed as described, the persistence of such stories points to a deeper truth: that humanity has always sensed the rise and fall of worlds, that we have always lived with the knowledge that nothing lasts forever. In that sense, the legends are indeed memories, not of a single lost civilization, but of the eternal cycle of creation and destruction that shapes life on Earth. We may never find definitive proof of Atlantis rising from the sea or Lemuria stretching across the ocean floor. But the search itself tells us something essential about who we are. We are a species of storytellers, seekers, and dreamers. We look into the past to understand ourselves, and in the absence of certainty, we fill the gaps with myth. Sometimes those myths prove to contain fragments of truth, guiding us toward discoveries. Other times they remain as parables, teaching us about hubris, resilience, or the longing for a perfect age. Whether fact or fiction, they are part of the human inheritance, binding us to our ancestors and reminding us that we, too, live in a world that one day will pass into legend. When future generations, or perhaps other beings in a distant future, look back on us, what will they see? Will they find only fragments of our cities, myths of our triumphs and failures, whispers of a golden age cut short? If the stories of Atlantis and Lemuria are echoes of forgotten worlds, then perhaps our own world is destined to join them, remembered not for its machines and towers but as a tale told around fires millennia from now. Myths, then, are not just about the past, they are about the future. They warn us, inspire us, and remind us that what we have now is precious, fragile, and fleeting. In that sense, the legends of lost worlds are both memory and prophecy, mirrors of what has been and shadows of what may come. Scattered across the world, in deserts, jungles, mountains, and even beneath the sea, lie objects and structures that do not quite fit into our conventional timelines of history. They are called anomalies, fragments of the past that seem too advanced, too precise, or too mysterious for the societies we believe created them. Archaeology has made enormous strides in explaining many ancient achievements, yet there remain artifacts that whisper of forgotten knowledge, civilizations erased, or skills that appear far ahead of their time. These anomalies challenge us not to rewrite history carelessly, but to admit that history might be deeper, stranger, and far less complete than we often imagine. One of the most captivating examples is the Piri Reis map. Drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, it was compiled using older sources that he claimed dated back to ancient times. The fragment that survives shows the coasts of South America, Africa, and parts of the Atlantic with startling accuracy for the early 16th century. What is most baffling is the depiction of Antarctica, or at least a landmass in its place, seemingly without ice. Modern cartography confirmed that beneath Antarctica's ice lies a rocky coastline, remarkably similar to what is shown on the map. If true, this would imply the original source materials came from a time when Antarctica was free of its massive ice sheets, tens of thousands of years ago. Skeptics argue that the resemblance is coincidence or that the landmass is a misinterpretation of South America's southern coast. Yet the precision of the map, combined with Piri Reis's claim of drawing from ancient charts, fuels speculation that long-lost mariners charted the world long before our textbooks allow. Maps are not the only mysterious relics. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, stunned the modern world. At first it looked like a lump of corroded bronze. Only later did X-rays reveal a complex system of gears, dials, and inscriptions. Scholars now recognize it as a kind of ancient computer, designed to predict eclipses, track celestial movements, and calculate cycles with extraordinary accuracy. Its level of mechanical sophistication would not be seen again for more than 1,000 years, until the development of intricate medieval astronomical clocks. How could a society in the 2nd century BCE possess such advanced engineering? And why was such technology apparently lost afterward? Was it a rare creation, centuries ahead of its time, or evidence that Greek science reached a pinnacle we scarcely recognize? The Antikythera mechanism raises a larger question. How much knowledge has humanity forgotten, misplaced, or abandoned? Even larger and more imposing are the megaliths, massive stones placed with precision that defies imagination. At Stonehenge in England, huge stones were transported from quarries more than 100 miles away and arranged in astronomical alignments. In Baalbek, Lebanon, sits the Trilithon, stones weighing more than 800 tons each, fitted into a platform whose purpose remains debated. How were such stones moved, lifted, and placed with accuracy, long before modern cranes and machinery? Some suggest ingenious combinations of levers, ramps, and manpower, but no experiment has replicated the scale of such feats. And why build in this way at all, when smaller stones would have sufficed? The very scale suggests either symbolic significance or knowledge that has eluded us. Pumapunku in Bolivia takes the enigma further. There, blocks of andesite, some weighing dozens of tons, are carved with machine-like precision. Perfect right angles, interlocking shapes, and smooth surfaces that resemble modern stone cutting. To this day, engineers and stonemasons marvel at the techniques required to produce such accuracy with supposed primitive tools. Traditional explanations suggest copper chisels, stone hammers, and a great deal of patience. Yet some cuts appear so clean and consistent that they resemble saws or drills. Were the builders of Pumapunku masters of a lost stonemasonry technique, or are we missing an entire chapter of technology from their world? Anomalous artifacts also appear in smaller, stranger forms. The Baghdad battery, a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and iron rod, has been proposed as an ancient galvanic cell, capable of generating a small electric charge. If true, it could have been used for electroplating or other experiments with electricity centuries before the science was understood. Critics suggest it may have been a simple storage vessel or ritual object, but its peculiar design continues to invite speculation. In India, the Iron Pillar of Delhi stands as another anomaly. Built over 1600 years ago, it resists corrosion despite being made of almost pure iron. Modern metallurgists struggled to explain how such a massive structure avoided rusting for centuries in an environment that should have destroyed it. Did ancient smiths know techniques of metallurgy we have only recently begun to rediscover? Megalithic sites scattered across the globe echo similar mysteries. On Easter Island, the Moai statues, massive stone heads with torsos buried beneath the soil, raise questions not only of transport and carving, but of cultural memory. Why were they built, and what knowledge of engineering, astronomy, and spiritual symbolism guided their creators? In Egypt, the pyramids remain subjects of wonder, not only for their alignment with the stars but also for their construction methods. How were millions of limestone blocks quarried, transported, and fitted so precisely that even a sheet of paper cannot slip between them? Mainstream archaeology attributes this to organization, manpower, and ingenious tools, but the sheer precision and scale continue to inspire alternative theories of forgotten technologies. Legends across the world may hint at connections to these anomalies. The Dogon people of Mali, for instance, possess myths describing the star Sirius and its unseen companion, a white dwarf invisible to the naked eye. Their knowledge, documented long before the existence of Sirius B was confirmed by telescopes, has led to speculation that they inherited astronomical knowledge from unknown sources. In Mesoamerica, Mayan and Aztec calendars exhibit astonishing precision, charting celestial cycles with accuracy rivaling modern calculations. How did ancient peoples without telescopes measure time so intricately? Oral traditions, myths, and artifacts together suggest that advanced astronomical knowledge was once widespread, perhaps even more sophisticated than we realize. At times, anomalies take the form of objects found where they should not be. Reports exist of metal spheres with intricate grooves unearthed in South African mines, supposedly dating back billions of years, though their origins remain controversial. In other cases, human-made objects appear embedded in ancient strata, challenging geological timelines. While many such discoveries turn out to be hoaxes or misinterpretations, the allure of out-of-place artifacts persists because they raise an uncomfortable possibility. What if traces of earlier, unknown civilizations truly exist, but are dismissed because they do not fit the accepted timeline? Skeptics rightly caution that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Many anomalies have prosaic explanations. The Piri race map may be misinterpreted. The Baghdad battery may not have been a battery at all. The Iron Pillar may owe its preservation to unique environmental conditions. Yet the persistence of anomalies across cultures suggests a pattern. Perhaps ancient peoples were far more ingenious than we credit, solving engineering challenges with methods lost to us. Or perhaps more radically, human history is punctuated by rises and falls, civilizations advancing and then collapsing, leaving only fragments behind. The deeper challenge is that time is merciless. The Earth is not a museum. It erases evidence relentlessly. Floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and the slow grind of erosion wipe away the traces of past worlds. If a civilization had thrived tens of thousands of years ago, how much would remain? Stone perhaps, but even that erodes. Wood, textiles, metals all decay. What survives are the anomalies, the fragments too durable to be destroyed, scattered pieces that refuse to fit neatly into our story. The temptation is to leap to fantastical explanations. Extraterrestrial visitors, lost continents like Atlantis or Lemuria, civilizations more advanced than ours. But perhaps the truth is subtler. Perhaps ancient peoples with their relentless curiosity, experimentation, and resilience reached farther than we assume. Perhaps the anomalies are not evidence of aliens or forgotten superscience, but reminders that human potential has always exceeded the narrow lines drawn by textbooks. When a megalith stands unmoved for thousands of years, when a corroded lump of bronze reveals a mechanism rivaling a clockwork computer, when a map hints at coastlines long hidden, we are confronted with the possibility that human history is not a straight line from primitive to advanced. It is a mosaic, with missing tiles, forgotten colors, and outlines blurred by time. Ultimately, anomalies force us to be humble. They remind us that the story of civilization is not fully written, that for every discovery we celebrate, countless others remain buried. They urge us to listen more carefully to myth, to folklore, to the whispers of indigenous traditions, for within them may lie distorted but real memories of achievements and cataclysms long past. They challenge us to look at the world not as a finished book but as a puzzle missing many pieces. Perhaps the greatest anomaly is our assumption that we know the full story. In truth, we are still piecing it together, artifact by artifact, anomaly by anomaly. Some mysteries will one day yield to explanation, their strangeness dissolving into the clarity of science. Others may never be solved, their answers lost forever. But in the gaps, in the questions that remain, lies the wonder of our shared human journey. The anomalies of the past are not merely curiosities. They are invitations to search, to question, and to remember that the earth is old and we are newcomers, with much yet to learn about those who walked before us. Across the long span of human history, there are moments when we stumble upon something so unexpected, so advanced, that it shakes our understanding of what ancient people were capable of. These discoveries are not just curiosities in museums or puzzles in archaeology books. They are reminders that the line between what we think we know and what may have been is far thinner than we imagine. Among these puzzles are the remnants of lost technologies, skills, and methods so sophisticated that they defy our expectations of what ancient civilizations could achieve. They hint that knowledge once flourished in ways we cannot fully reconstruct, and that humanity's story is not a simple march of progress but a tale of brilliance, loss, and rediscovery. The Antikythera mechanism is often the starting point of any discussion about lost technology. Found in 1901 in the wreck of a Roman-era ship off the Greek island of Antikythera, it appeared at first as nothing more than a corroded lump of bronze. Decades later, as researchers studied it with X-rays and advanced imaging, they realized it was a gear-driven machine of astonishing complexity, containing over 30 interlocking gears with precision-cut teeth. Inscribed with instructions in ancient Greek, the device could predict eclipses, chart the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, and keep track of celestial cycles. It was, in essence, a mechanical computer built over 2,000 years ago. The precision of its construction rivals clockwork devices created more than a millennium later in medieval Europe. The Antikythera mechanism did not emerge in isolation. Someone built it, and others must have known how to use it. Yet no other artifact of its kind has survived, and history offers us only silence about how such technology came to exist, or why it was seemingly lost. Was it an isolated genius at work, or evidence of a broader technological culture whose inventions were erased by time? If the Antikythera mechanism represents the subtle brilliance of lost knowledge, the pyramids of Egypt embody the grandeur of lost techniques. For thousands of years they have stood as monuments to human ingenuity, yet the methods of their construction remain hotly debated. Each pyramid consists of millions of massive stone blocks, some weighing more than 70 tons, cut with remarkable accuracy and transported from quarries miles away. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned with the cardinal directions to a precision that astonishes modern surveyors, its base nearly a perfect square. Traditional explanations invoke ramps, levers, sledges, and tens of thousands of laborers. Yet no complete record survives to confirm exactly how they were built. The sheer logistics of the task raise questions. How were the blocks lifted so high? How were they placed with such accuracy that even a razor blade cannot slip between them? To dismiss the pyramids as mere brute labor is to underestimate the possibility that the Egyptians mastered techniques, perhaps engineering principles, tools, or organizational methods that have since vanished. Megalithic architecture elsewhere in the world echoes the same enigma. In the highlands of Peru lies Sacsayhuaman, a fortress constructed from massive stones fitted together like a jigsaw puzzle. Some of these stones weigh over 100 tons, yet they are shaped so precisely that no mortar was needed to hold them in place. The seams between stones are so tight that they have resisted earthquakes for centuries. To cut, shape, and fit such enormous blocks with this level of perfection suggests techniques of stonemasonry we still struggle to explain. At Pumapunku, part of the Tiwanaku complex in Bolivia, stones are carved with such sharp angles, straight lines, and drilled holes that they resemble the output of modern machines. How were such feats accomplished with supposed copper chisels and stone hammers? The absence of written records leaves us only the stones themselves, standing as mute testimony to skills that have not survived. The megaliths of Baalbek in Lebanon raise similar questions. The Temple of Jupiter rests on a foundation of some of the largest stones ever quarried. The Trilithon, a set of 3 massive blocks, each weighing over 800 tons, is positioned with precision into the platform. In a nearby quarry lies an unfinished stone estimated to weigh over 1,000 tons. Moving and placing such colossal blocks is a feat that challenges even modern machinery. How ancient builders managed to cut, transport, and position them remains uncertain. Theories abound. Immense ramps, ingenious leverage systems, or knowledge of techniques lost to us. Whatever the explanation, the fact remains that builders of antiquity possessed abilities far beyond what we typically imagine. Lost technologies are not confined to stonework. Metallurgy provides its own mysteries. The Iron Pillar of Delhi, built over 1,600 years ago, resists corrosion despite being composed of nearly pure iron in a humid climate, where rust should have long since destroyed it. Modern analysis reveals a protective layer of crystalline iron-hydrogen phosphate film that formed over centuries, a result of unique ancient techniques of smelting and forging. How did the blacksmiths of that era achieve such results without modern scientific understanding? Similar puzzles arise in the production of Damascus steel, famed for its strength and beautiful water-like patterns. The exact methods for creating it, involving nanostructures of carbon within the steel, were lost by the 18th century, only recently rediscovered by modern science. Such examples remind us that technologies can be forgotten as easily as they are discovered, their secrets vanishing with the artisans who perfected them. Electrical knowledge, too, may have flickered in antiquity. The so-called Baghdad battery, discovered in Iraq and dating to around 2,000 years ago, consists of a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. Some researchers suggest it could generate a small electric current when filled with an acidic solution, possibly used for electroplating or ritual purposes. While the mainstream view holds it was likely a simple storage vessel, its design is undeniably curious. If it was indeed a form of primitive battery, it suggests that knowledge of electricity was explored long before the modern era. The skills hinted at in ancient navigation also suggest lost technologies. Polynesian seafarers crossed vast stretches of ocean without compasses or modern instruments, relying on a deep, intuitive knowledge of stars, winds, and waves. Their achievements, only recently appreciated in full, reveal a mastery of navigation that was once dismissed as impossible. Likewise, ancient cultures produced maps showing coastlines with startling accuracy, such as the Piri Reis map, which some claim depicts parts of South America and even Antarctica before they were officially charted. Whether coincidence, genius, or inheritance from earlier traditions, these maps hint at geographic knowledge whose origins remain murky. Lost technologies may also have taken forms that leave little trace. Consider agriculture and medicine. Ancient peoples selectively bred crops, domesticated animals, and developed remedies from plants with astonishing precision. Traditional Chinese medicine, Indian Ayurveda, and indigenous knowledge systems often contain insights into pharmacology only recently validated by modern science. How much knowledge was lost as civilizations rose and fell, their oral traditions broken, their libraries burned. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria is often cited as a symbol of how fragile human knowledge is, with countless texts potentially containing discoveries erased forever. The broader question is why such knowledge was lost. Sometimes it was the result of conquest. Societies destroyed, artisans killed or scattered, traditions interrupted. Sometimes it was neglect. Skills rendered obsolete by changing needs or replaced by newer methods only to vanish when those methods failed. Natural disasters, plagues, and cultural upheavals all contributed to the erasure of knowledge. We assume that technology always advances in a straight line, but history suggests otherwise. Civilizations rise, achieve wonders, and then collapse, leaving only fragments behind. Looking at the ruins of the past, it is easy to project our own fascination with technology backward, to imagine machines and devices that rival our own. But the real story may be subtler and even more humbling. Lost technologies need not mean flying machines or electricity as we know it. They may mean mastery of stone, metal, wood, and earth to degrees we have forgotten. They may mean techniques of measurement, astronomy, or medicine that do not fit our modern categories but were no less profound. What matters is not that ancient people were primitive or advanced, but that they were resourceful, creative, and capable of achievements that still challenge us. In our own time, technologies emerge and vanish quickly. Digital formats become obsolete within decades. Knowledge is locked away in servers that may not survive the centuries, and even our greatest structures could crumble to dust within millennia. If our society disappeared tomorrow, what would remain 10,000 years from now? Likely not our machines or books, but fragments of concrete, traces of plastics, unusual isotopes, and perhaps a few monumental ruins. Future archaeologists might puzzle over them as we puzzle over the Antikythera mechanism or the stones of Pumapunku. They might wonder at our skills and speculate about technologies we once possessed. In this light, the lost technologies of the past are not only mysteries of history, but warnings for the present. The allure of lost technologies lies not only in their mystery, but in what they reveal about us. They remind us that we are not the first to strive for mastery of the world, nor will we be the last to see our achievements fade. They teach us humility, showing that knowledge is fragile, easily forgotten, and dependent on the survival of cultures that safeguard it. They inspire us to preserve what we know, to value the insights of older traditions and to recognize that our ancestors may have held wisdom we have yet to rediscover. Standing before the Antikythera mechanism, gazing up at the pyramids, tracing the tight seams of Sacsayhuaman, or imagining the flicker of a Baghdad battery, one cannot help but feel awe. These are not just relics but echoes of forgotten brilliance. They tell us that history is not a straight line but a labyrinth, where knowledge appears, flourishes, and then vanishes into shadow. The story of lost technologies is, ultimately, the story of human potential, its heights, its fragility, and its enduring mystery. The earth is a patient destroyer. It does not erase in haste but in the slow grinding cycles of ice and fire, water and stone. What we call permanence is in truth only the illusion of stability stretched over human lifetimes. Cities rise, monuments endure, and we believe them eternal. Yet the planet has ways of swallowing even the grandest works of our hands. Ice ages, floods, volcanic eruptions, shifting continents, and the ceaseless churn of geological forces have time and again transformed the face of the earth. Within this constant renewal lies the unsettling possibility that entire civilizations, if they existed before us, may have been erased so completely that only the faintest whispers remain. If our own societies were to fall, what traces would survive 10,000 years from now? What about 1,000,000? Or 100 million? To ask these questions is to recognize that natural erasure is not a theory but a certainty, and that it may already have claimed histories older than we dare to imagine. Ice ages provide one of the clearest examples of how the earth can scour away the traces of human achievement. Vast sheets of ice, sometimes miles thick, once covered continents. They advanced slowly but with a weight so immense that they ground mountains into rubble, scraped valleys into being, and carried away everything in their path. If cities had stood in the way of a glacial advance, they would have been obliterated beyond recognition, pulverized into dust and rock. The ice itself preserves little of what it destroys. When it retreats, it leaves behind barren landscapes reshaped beyond memory. During the last glacial maximum, much of North America, Europe, and Asia lay under ice, and whatever may have existed there before was wiped clean. If civilizations had risen in those regions in some forgotten epoch, the glaciers would have crushed them and erased nearly every trace. The silence of the ice does not deny the possibility of their existence. It only conceals it. Water, too, is a relentless eraser. Floods are not rare, isolated events, but recurring forces that have reshaped human memory and myth. Entire coastlines have drowned beneath rising seas. At the end of the last ice age, melting glaciers caused oceans to surge by hundreds of feet, swallowing vast tracts of land. Areas that may once have been inhabited now lie beneath the waves, buried under silt and coral. Submerged ruins off the coast of India, Japan, and the Mediterranean hint at the possibility that ancient settlements lie drowned, their stories forgotten. The Black Sea, geologists suggest, may have undergone a catastrophic flood thousands of years ago, an event that may have inspired tales of great deluges in Near Eastern myth. In every culture, flood legends echo the same theme: a world washed clean, civilizations destroyed, survivors clinging to fragments of memory. If seas can rise so swiftly within the span of human generations, how much more have they hidden over the span of tens of thousands of years? Beneath the ocean lies a vast archive of what once was, sealed away by water and time. Volcanoes add another layer of destruction. When Vesuvius erupted in 79 CE, it buried Pompeii and Herculaneum in ash, freezing them in a moment of horror and preservation. In this rare case, the eruption captured a city intact, allowing us to peer into daily Roman life. Yet not all eruptions preserve. Most annihilate. Entire landscapes can be blanketed in molten rock, ash, and poisonous gases. Whole regions become uninhabitable. If a civilization stood near one of Earth's supervolcanoes, such as Yellowstone or Toba, an eruption could have obliterated it entirely. The Toba supereruption around 74,000 years ago nearly drove early humans to extinction. What might it have done to other societies should they have existed? Lava hardens into stone, erasing fragile materials, burying monuments, and sealing artifacts beyond reach. To look at a volcanic plain is to look at a graveyard without markers, where the earth has covered its past in fire. Yet perhaps the most profound erasure comes from the slow drift of continents themselves. Plate tectonics is the ultimate recycler, pulling land beneath the sea, raising mountains where oceans once lay, and reshaping the face of the earth over millions of years. The ocean floor, constantly renewed at mid-ocean ridges and consumed at subduction zones, is no more than 200 million years old. Anything built upon it before that time would have been dragged into the Earth's mantle and destroyed. Continents, too, are ground down by erosion, their rocks broken and reformed, their ancient surfaces transformed into new crust. If civilizations rose hundreds of millions of years ago, the geologic record would likely have swallowed nearly all evidence. Fossils are rare, artifacts rarer still. What we see of Earth's past is but a fragment of what once was. Even in the more recent past, the forces of nature remind us how fragile human achievement is. Earthquakes topple cities in minutes. Tsunamis sweep away entire coastlines. Hurricanes, landslides, and wildfires reduce human effort to rubble. If such forces can devastate our modern world, what chance did earlier societies have of leaving enduring traces? Consider how little of our own civilization might survive if humanity vanished tomorrow. Steel towers would rust and collapse within centuries. Roads would crack, bridges crumble, and dams burst. Forests would reclaim cities, rivers would shift and bury ruins, deserts would swallow structures in sand. Within a few thousand years, the earth would look as though we had never existed, except for a few scattered monuments, perhaps a carved mountain or two, and chemical signatures left in the soil. Our time would become a ghost layer in the geological record, awaiting rediscovery by some future intelligence. Myths and legends may preserve echoes of these erasures. Tales of floods, fires, sinking lands, and vanished kingdoms could be cultural memories of real catastrophes. Atlantis, Lemuria, and countless other lost worlds may not have existed as Plato or others described them, but their stories could reflect the deep human experience of erasure. When rising seas swallowed ancient coasts, survivors would have passed down stories of a drowned homeland. When volcanoes erupted, generations would remember a land destroyed by fire. When earthquakes shattered cities, myths of divine punishment or cosmic upheaval may have encoded the trauma. These stories remind us that the destruction of civilizations by natural forces is not hypothetical. It is woven into the human record itself. Science, too, provides evidence of erasure. Archaeologists unearth layers of burnt soil, sudden shifts in pottery styles, and abandoned settlements, all pointing to natural disasters. Geologists uncover strata filled with ash, flood deposits, or signs of sudden climate change. Yet these records are incomplete. The earth hides as much as it reveals. For every Pompeii preserved by chance, countless other towns, villages, and monuments have been obliterated beyond recognition. When we marvel at the durability of the pyramids or Stonehenge, we should also recognize that they are exceptions, survivors that withstood the earth's erasing hand. How many other monuments, equal or greater, were not so lucky? The idea of natural erasure forces us to rethink the scale of human time. We measure history in centuries or millennia, but the earth moves in epochs and eons. To the planet, 10,000 years is nothing. 1,000,000 years is a blink. Civilizations could rise and vanish without leaving more than a whisper. The fossil record itself shows us how little survives. Entire species that dominated the earth for millions of years are known only from a handful of bones. If life itself leaves so little trace, How much harder would it be to detect the remains of a civilization after millions of years of ice, fire, flood, and tectonic recycling? The silence of deep time may not mean absence. It may mean obliteration. This perspective is humbling. It challenges the idea that we are the first or the only advanced beings to walk this planet. It suggests that others may have come before us, their stories wiped away by the indifference of nature. If so, what we call anomalies, strange artifacts, out-of-place objects, unexplained structures, may be fragments that slipped through the cracks of erasure, or they may be the lucky survivors of disasters that claimed entire worlds. Even if earlier civilizations never existed, the possibility remains plausible, for the Earth is more than capable of erasing almost every trace of them. In the end, natural erasure is not just a concept of geology, it is a reminder of our own fragility. We build in stone and steel, yet the planet has swallowed mountains, oceans, and continents whole. We imagine permanence, but permanence is a myth. The Earth is alive, restless, and ever-changing. The civilizations we know from history, Sumer, Egypt, the Maya, Rome, are survivors of a narrow window of stability. Countless others may have risen in places we will never find, in times we cannot reach, their memory erased by ice, water, fire, and stone. And so the question lingers, what if humanity is not the first? What if the ruins we uncover are only fragments of a much longer story, most of it erased by the natural forces that sculpt this planet? Perhaps one day we will stumble upon clearer evidence, a monument buried deep, a relic sealed in stone, a message that survived the great erasures of time. Until then, the Earth remains both cradle and grave, a patient destroyer that keeps its secrets well. What remains of a civilization when the stones of its cities have crumbled to dust, when its monuments have sunk beneath rising seas, and when its memory has been erased from history? That is the haunting essence of the legacy question, the possibility that if advanced societies existed before us, what faint traces of them might still be hidden, lingering like ghosts in the myths of humanity, buried beneath oceans or sealed deep within the Earth's crust. The idea is at once alluring and unsettling, because it forces us to imagine that the story of civilization may not have begun with us, that we are not the pinnacle of human history, but only one chapter in a book far older and longer than we can grasp. If there were worlds before ours, what shadows of them could survive the relentless erosion of time? One of the first places we must turn is myth. Mythology is often treated as allegory, as primitive attempts to explain the unknown through stories of gods, monsters, and golden ages. Yet myths persist with curious similarities across cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Stories of lost lands like Atlantis, Mu, or Lemuria surface again and again, each describing a place of great power or wisdom that was destroyed by cataclysm. Plato's Atlantis, drowned in a single day and night, has haunted the Western imagination for centuries. Yet similar motifs exist in Hindu texts that speak of great cities swallowed by the sea, in Polynesian traditions of vanished islands, and in Mesoamerican tales of suns that fell and worlds that ended. The question arises, are these merely archetypes of human storytelling, or do they preserve distant memories of real societies obliterated by nature and remembered only in fragmentary myth? If a civilization fell thousands or even tens of thousands of years ago, it is unlikely that any physical remains would be obvious to us today. But human beings are storytellers, and survivors of catastrophe may have preserved their memories in oral traditions passed down for generations until they transformed into legend. Myths of floods, in particular, echo from nearly every culture on Earth, from the biblical deluge to the Mesopotamian story of Utnapishtim, to the flood myths of the Maya, Chinese, and even indigenous peoples of North America. These are not identical tales, yet the central theme, that a world was destroyed by water and that remnants of humanity survived, suggests some shared ancestral trauma. If one flood legend might reflect a real event, could others point to cataclysms so old that they predate recorded history? Perhaps the ruins of those drowned worlds remain, buried under sediments on the ocean floor waiting to be rediscovered. The oceans are one of the greatest repositories of forgotten legacies. More than 70% of the Earth's surface lies underwater, much of it unexplored. Coastlines are dynamic, and during the last ice age, sea levels were more than 100 meters lower than today. Entire continental shelves that may once have been habitable now lie drowned beneath the waves. Evidence already exists of submerged ruins. The structures off the coast of Yonaguni in Japan, the underwater formations near Dwarka in India, and the enigmatic shapes beneath the waters of the Mediterranean. While mainstream archaeology debates whether these are natural formations or genuine remnants of human activity, the fact remains that vast portions of Earth's history lie underwater. If advanced societies once flourished along coastlines now drowned, their legacies may be entombed in silt, corals, and shifting sands, awaiting the eyes of divers or robotic explorers to bring them to light. But oceans are not the only vaults of forgotten civilizations. The Earth itself is a layered archive. In caves, deserts, and beneath fertile valleys, ancient artifacts sometimes survive in silence, waiting to be uncovered. Archaeology has already shown us how fragile the continuity of history can be. Entire cities like Troy were thought to be pure myth until excavations revealed their stones. The same was true of Nineveh, and Machu Picchu. How many other sites still slumber beneath the earth, unknown because they lie under jungles, deserts, or modern cities? Some legacies may not be monumental at all but microscopic. Unusual chemical residues in soil, traces of metallurgy in ancient strata, or anomalous fossils that don't fit neatly into the evolutionary timeline. Such subtle clues could be the last fingerprints of civilizations erased by time. Even if myths and ruins fail us, there may still be other echoes. Technology itself leaves legacies, sometimes in unexpected ways. The Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek device of astonishing complexity, shocked modern historians when it was found because it suggested a level of engineering thought to be impossible in that era. If one device could survive by chance in a shipwreck, what other marvels might have been lost? Could there have been even older technologies from societies now forgotten that have not survived the corrosion of time? Metals rust, wood rots, glass shatters. Unless preserved in unusual conditions, most materials vanish within centuries. But sometimes in caves, peat bogs, volcanic ash, or deep sediments, artifacts are preserved against all odds. It is not impossible that one day an object will be found that does not fit into any known timeline, raising questions that defy easy answers. Some scientists have even speculated that if civilizations older than humanity once existed, their legacy might not be physical at all but planetary. Human activity, for instance, leaves a distinct chemical fingerprint. Plastics, radioactive isotopes, synthetic compounds, and atmospheric alterations. If humanity were to vanish, these residues would persist for thousands or even millions of years in the geological record. Could the Earth already contain such anomalous signatures from an earlier epoch? Unexplained concentrations of metals, sudden carbon shifts, or deposits of unusual isotopes might be the silent echoes of a society that lived and perished long before ours. In this sense, the Earth itself becomes the library of forgotten legacies, and scientists are only beginning to learn how to read its records. Yet the legacy of lost civilizations, if they existed, may also live on in culture. Hidden in plain sight, languages carry echoes of the past. Symbols, rituals, and architectural motifs sometimes persist long after their original context has been forgotten. The pyramidal form, for instance, appears in cultures as far apart as Egypt, Mesoamerica and Mesopotamia. Mainstream history explains this as independent invention, a natural shape for building large monuments. But what if it reflects a deeper inheritance, a memory of a form once used in some forgotten past? Likewise, ancient myths of gods descending from the sky or teaching humanity the arts of civilization could be echoes of earlier advanced societies remembered through mythologized storytelling. The possibility that our oldest traditions are not entirely inventions but inherited memories cannot be dismissed outright. The legacy question also raises a profound philosophical issue. What does it mean to endure? Civilizations crave permanence. They build monuments of stone, write records in durable media, and imagine that their achievements will stand for eternity. Yet even the greatest works are fragile in the scale of geological time. The Great Pyramid has stood for thousands of years, but in another 100,000, erosion may reduce it to rubble. The statues of Rapa Nui have endured, but storms and tides will eventually claim them. If civilizations older than ours built wonders, they may have been just as mighty, yet time has erased them. What survives is not the grandeur of their cities, but the faint echoes we glimpse in myth, anomaly, or unexplained ruin. Considering these possibilities does not mean assuming the existence of hidden ancient empires or secret histories, but it does challenge us to expand our imagination. We tend to see history as a linear path leading inevitably to us. But what if it is cyclical, with civilizations rising, falling, and being forgotten? Our own legacy may one day be as faint as theirs, reduced to scattered myths or mysterious ruins. Perhaps future beings will look at a buried fragment of our cities and wonder if they are the remnants of gods, just as we speculate about lost golden ages. In this sense, the legacy question is not only about the past but also about the future. It reminds us of our fragility and of how little of what we do may truly endure. And yet, even in the face of erasure, there is something profound in the act of legacy itself. The possibility that we may not be the first civilization on Earth connects us to a lineage of memory stretching beyond history. It transforms myths into potential archives, the Earth itself into a record keeper, and unexplained anomalies into clues. Whether or not earlier civilizations existed, the legacy question forces us to listen closely to the stories we inherit, to the ruins we uncover, and to the silences that surround us. For in those silences may lie the greatest secret of all, that we are part of a much older story than we know, a story written in cycles of creation and destruction, of remembrance and forgetting, where only fragments remain to hint at what came before. The echoes may be subtle, but they are there. In myths of floods and fires, in drowned ruins beneath the sea, in anomalies that defy explanation, and in the geological layers of the planet itself. They remind us that history is never complete, that the Earth is vast and patient, and that human memory reaches deeper than we can prove. The legacies of the past, if they exist, may be all around us, hidden, waiting, whispering, and if we listen closely enough, perhaps we will one day hear their voices again.